This is a 2023 Porsche 911 Carrera T, a new model in the Porsche 911 lineup that slots neatly between the standard Carrera and the more powerful Carrera S. We first saw Carrera Ts in the late 1960s, but they went away in 1973, not to return until the 2018 model year as an addition to the 991.2 generation 911. And this is its return to the market as part of the 992 generation 911 lineup. But this time, it's not alone. There are also T versions of the 718, both the Boxster and the Cayman, and the Macan compact SUV. And I was lucky enough to review both of them. Links are in the description. And it's grown in popularity because it follows a great formula. Take the base engine, sharpen up the chassis, and remove weight where you can. Also, this is actually the only 911 you can get that comes with a base engine and a manual transmission. Considering all of that, I think this may be the best 911 you can get for the road. That's why I wanted to review it and find out. But first, let's talk price. Okay, I think we all know that 911s aren't cheap, okay? So let's start there. Any 911 you get in is well over six figures to start. With that said, the base price for a 2023 Porsche 911 Carrera T is $118,050. And my test car did include a few options, which I have in the description, and we'll show you several of them in a moment, and costs $124,790. Okay, with that, now is a good time for me to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. It's pretty. Sometimes keeping it simple, light, and sticking with the fundamentals is what brings the most satisfaction. And that's what the T trim is all about. Let's take a closer look. From the front, you are largely looking at the same thing as a standard Carrera, though not quite exactly, because this does ride 0.4 of an inch lower to the ground, so you do just get a little bit closer here with this front spoiler. Otherwise, I don't mind that it looks like a standard Carrera because it looks really good. You still have that classic 911 front end shape with these nice headlamps kind of bulging out from this low sloping hood, and it just has that immediate impression of fast sports car, and I absolutely love it. The headlamps look cool. You get these four outer beams that encompasses this big central beam right here, and the Porsche logo right inside it, which is a nice little touch. And because this is a Porsche, a rear engine Porsche, yes, we do have a Frunk. And that reveals 4.6 cubic feet of storage, enough for a couple of bags. You could squeeze things in for a weekend without too much trouble. But I wonder if you're curious like I am, will my bike fit? Nope. Looking at the car in profile, the first thing you probably notice is the racing yellow paint. That is a standard paint color, but you can definitely spend money on paint if you want to. In fact, you can spend up to $13,150 on a paint to sample option. The second thing you might notice are the bigger Carrera S wheels. I'll show you those in more detail in just a moment. And then you might notice that again, this sits a little bit lower to the ground than the standard Carrera. 10 millimeters or 0.4 of an inch adds just a little bit more of an aggressive presence to an already inherently aggressive shape. I think it makes it look nicer. I quite like it. Then some Carrera details do pop up. You do get these agate gray side view mirror covers right here, and the agate gray sticker right here that says 911 Carrera T right there, fittingly enough. And then I do just like the details. The color scheme really works for me, especially with this black window trim contrasting the yellow paint. I think it works really nice. Real quick, I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen so you can check those out and let you know that I have more information in the description. This particular Carrera T is equipped with the front axle lift system. You engage it with this button right here. And in just a few seconds, the car lifts up nicely to make it easier to clear stuff with the front end. Press the button again, and it drops back down even faster. Easy, works well. The Carrera T is equipped with Carrera S wheels, finished in titanium gray. They are 1 inch larger than standard Carrera wheels, and they are staggered in both section width and diameter. You get 245 section width in front, 305 section width in the rear, and this is a 20-inch wheel up here, 21s in back. Now behind those wheels, you get 13-inch rotors on both the front and the back, but the front rotors are a little bit thicker. Both front and rear are ventilated, however. This is on the smaller side for brakes for the 911, but if you're sticking to road driving, this is plenty of brake for just about any situation, and it takes some weight off the car as well. Looking at the back of the car, yeah, this is all classic 911 Carrera here, although it does say Carrera T instead of just Carrera, and we do have black exhaust tips on either side, and yes, those are definitely very real. Also, that is the sport exhaust, which gives you 2 options for noise, and always choose loud. Finally, you do have a rear wing up here. It comes up automatically at certain speeds. You can see the partition here and here. So that lifts when you're at interstate speeds, for example. And no, you do not have access to the engine easily from above the car, but you do have access to a couple of things. Let me briefly show you. This little flap reveals this nice little metal 3.0 emblem right here, representing the twin turbocharged 3-liter flat 6 you get here. A couple of cooling fans running and oil, coolant. Let's take a look inside. Fun little trick with the auto lock here. The door is locked right now, but if I put my hand under it, it unlocks like that. Then I can open it. When I want to lock it, just push on the handle. Right off the bat, we have pretty minimal but typical controls on the door right here. We also have this nice black but metal kick plate right here that says Carrera T. Here are the controls to open both the front and rear hatches. We do have an electric seat for seat height and seat back angle, but fore and aft movement is done manually right here. These are the 4-way adjustable Sport Seats Plus, and I find them plenty supportive and comfortable. You have nice deep bolsters right here and pretty darn deep bolsters here as well. And this is a nice synthetic material that is on it. And you have 911 embossed in the headrest right there. In addition to the 4.6 cubic feet of space you get in the Frunk, you also get rear seat delete in the Carrera T, and that provides an additional 9 cubic feet of storage behind the seats. So combined, you have plenty of space for a weekend trip, I would say. But if you want, you can put the seats back in. For $540, this particular Carrera T has the optional seat belts in racing yellow. Lovely. Typical controls to the left of the steering wheel for a Porsche, including the start-stop switch right here. The Porsche Carrera T comes standard with the GT Sport steering wheel that you can see right here, but a $280 option is this little element right here. On the back side, that is a button for the heated steering wheel. So that's a nice touch, especially in the colder months. Standard on the Carrera T is a Sport Chrono package, and that includes extra drive modes, which you adjust right here. I'll show you those in just a moment. And the instrument cluster includes 2 digital screens on either side of an analog and central tachometer right here with digital speed right inside it. I like it that way. I like it that way a lot. And next to that is a 10.9-inch center console touchscreen, and above that is a lovely analog clock. Here are the instrument cluster screens fully lit up, and they are adjustable. You can adjust this one ever so slightly by turning on and off current position of navigation, but this one has lots and lots of adjustment, starting with the drive modes, and I'll talk about those more in just a moment. But then you have this reduced view of the instrument cluster as a whole, and I just press the dial here to show it. And there, that really allows the tachometer to stand out even more, and you just get the basic information. Otherwise, I think that's really nice. But then you also have a lot of other information, important coolant, oil, turbo pressure, all that kind of stuff, and a whole bunch more stuff. Here is the 10.9-inch center console touchscreen lit up, and as you can see, there's many options on it. You do get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with it, and generally speaking, it's easy to read and use. We also get standard dual zone climate control right here and standard heated seats as well. What luxury. Beneath that, we do have an electric parking brake and a single cup holder, but if you don't like that cup holder, it's easy to remove just like that. I will say though, this cup holder is pretty small. The passenger gets a better cup holder. It's right here. Lovely. The lower center console has a real nice tray for a smartphone and 2 USB ports right there. Looking up, we have a couple of lights and then a nice and simple roof. No moonroof here or anything like that, which is good because that is less weight and less weight up high. And I glossed over this, I really shouldn't. What do we have here? That's right, a manual transmission. This is a 7-speed manual transmission that is in the Carrera, not the 6-speed that's in the GT cars. And it is a really nice working manual transmission. The Carrera T's is 10 millimeters or 4/10 of an inch shorter, the shift lever itself. And that does make the throws a little bit shorter, and the shift lever takes up just a little bit more space. It works really, really well. Porsches with a manual transmission, it just feels right. Okay, now that we've talked about that kind of driving, we should talk about the drive modes. You get 5 of them: wet, normal, sport, and when you turn on sport, that automatically turns on the louder exhaust. But even if the car is in normal, you can manually turn it on like that, and I highly recommend it because always loud. It sounds so good, especially when we're really moving. It sounds so good. But if you then put it to Sport Plus, both the loud exhaust and the stiffer shock absorber setting comes on. And if you're on the right roads for it, it's a phenomenal driving experience. And finally, we do have the individual mode, so you can adjust it any which way you want. Okay, I've hinted at it, haven't I? It's not bad to drive this car, so of course, I'm anxious to get back to the drive. Let's do that now. Okay, let's dig into the powertrain. We start with the base engine, which is still a potent twin turbocharged 3-liter flat 6 that makes 379 horsepower at 6,500 RPM and 331 pound-feet of torque between 1,900 and 5,000 RPM. Yeah, you get more than 3,000 RPM of peak torque right in the mid-range. Pretty darn good. The compression ratio is pretty high for a turbo engine at 10.2 to 1, and the flat 6 boxer engine does use direct fuel injection. And despite being a turbo, we get a pretty darn healthy 7,500 RPM redline. That's higher than most. Of course, because this is the T, we get the 7-speed manual transmission that I showed you. Very, very happy to see that. But for those who want it, you can get the PDK instead. It is an 8-speed PDK, and it is a no-cost option to the Carrera T. After that power gets through the transmission, it goes through a mechanical limited slip differential that has Porsche torque vectoring before going on to the rear wheels. This is rear engine, rear wheel drive. And fun fact, there are actually 3 overdrive gears in the 7-speed manual transmission. 5th, 6th, and 7th, there is no direct drive. 4th gear's ratio is 1.18 to 1. Interesting. Also, with the T, we get the sport exhaust, and that means we get this button right here, which I'll call the loud button, which I'll turn on because always loud. This thing is always better when it's loud. It sounds so good. This flat six, even though it's turbocharged, has a nice open throaty sound, and I just absolutely love the mechanical sonorous noises this thing makes, and the sport exhaust just emphasizes it that much more. Definitely a good thing. This is a good engine. The base engine in the 911 is a good engine. It's got good mid-range punch, it's got good power, and it sounds so good. And you don't have to listen to me say that, just listen to the engine itself. I mean, come on! Oh man! We've got beautiful, beautiful noises and fantastic muscle in this thing. This is 100 pounds lighter than a base Carrera, and it just feels lighter on its feet as a result. Straight line performance in this thing is stout, and on public roads, I don't know if you could make much use of much more power. You're gonna get to very high speeds very quickly with this base engine. It's really, really good. And it's not all that inefficient considering everything. You get 17 miles to the gallon in the city, 25 miles to the gallon on the highway, 20 combined. Nothing fantastic about it, but considering everything, I'll call it reasonable. And besides, when you have this much pleasure in control of your right foot, I mean, it's really good. But of course, me just blasting around and ripping it and doing a pull or two, that's not enough. Of course I had to test the acceleration. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test in this base engine, manually transmission equipped 2023 Porsche 911T. I do have the car in Sport Plus driving mode, and I do have stability control off. And we're gonna have to give it some decent revs to get moving, I think. Let's give it a shot. Okay, coming to a complete stop. I think about 5,000 RPM. It's only letting me do 3,500 RPM, so we'll do that. Oh man! Oh man! Oh, what a great sound! Oh my gosh! So at 0 speed, it wouldn't let me go past 3,500 revs. That made the launch a little bit underwhelming, I'll be honest. But whew, once we got moving, oh man, this is the base engine. Fantastic acceleration. Porsche says 0 to 60 takes 4.3 seconds with the manually equipped Carrera T. If you do go for the PDK instead, that does drop to 3.8 seconds. It's quick, is the point. And I imagine you might want to do a little clutch slip to get the best launch, but that's not the best thing to do for the longevity of your clutch. So, something to consider. Okay, let's talk chassis, because that's where the Carrera T really shines. As I mentioned in the walk around, you get PASM Sport suspension, which makes the T 4/10 of an inch or 10 millimeters lower to the ground than the standard Carrera, and adds adaptive shock absorbers to the car. PASM stands for Porsche Active Suspension Management, by the way. When we're talking chassis, it's worth mentioning again the mechanical limited slip diff and Porsche torque vectoring. That definitely helps putting power down at corner exit. Not to mention the bigger wheels front and back. Not to mention the 100 fewer pounds it weighs thanks to this manual transmission, and a few other bits like the thinner glass and less sound insulation and a smaller battery. But bear in mind, if you get the PDK, that does put 84 pounds right back on the car. Finally, this particular Carrera T does have rear axle steering, which is a $2,019 option, and does add some maneuverability in the lower speed corners and some stability in the high speed corners. Considering all that, and I mean, irrelevant of all that, it's a 911, it's a Porsche, and it's a 911. Of course, I want to take it to some nice roads and test the handling. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a handling test. I have the Carrera T in Sport Plus driving mode, and I have a big smile on my face. Okay. Oh man, yes, good acceleration for sure. Oh man, love that sound. Oh, good grip, of course. Nice flat body, really good control of the body through the suspension in the Sport Plus driving mode. Good chassis balance too. Man, this thing is just so good to drive and so easy to drive. I'm going quite quickly and I'm not intimidated at all by this pretty darn potent machine. It has really good control, really smooth responses to my inputs. The front and the rear communicate really well, and the car communicates with me really well. So, whew, yeah, that's a great start. I want to do some more. Yep, handle those swoops in the road just fine, of course. Oh, man. Oh, man. Lots of grip, really positive engagement. Oh, what is there to say? This thing, it's just fantastic to drive. It's so much fun. It feels natural. It feels alive. It feels engaging. It's quick to respond. It's smooth to respond. It's just fantastic. It takes a base Carrera, fantastic foundation, and just brings it all up a notch to a place that I just absolutely adore. Yeah, I mean, it's just so much fun. It's so good. But of course, any car is probably gonna have to spend some time just doing some more mundane tasks, just getting to the nicer roads, if nothing else, which may very well mean a stint on the highway. So, to be thorough, I wanted to test it there as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate. This 911 is still a car after all, so let's see how it feels on the open road. Unlike most cars I take on the highway most of the time, this does not have some big massive slew of driving assistance systems. You're the driver. You're meant to drive it. I quite like that. However, there are still some things that we have to consider. First of all, this has less sound insulation and the thinner glass. That's not going to help us out on the interstate. Second of all, while we do have a 7-speed manual transmission, it is still a manual transmission, and these days the top gear in manuals tend to be a little bit higher than other cars. That said, we're cruising at 80 miles an hour, and in 7th gear, engine speed's just a tick under 2,000 RPM, so it's really not bad. And since we have the sport exhaust and we have it set to the quieter setting, engine noise, in my opinion, is actually a nice lower rumble, and it's quite pleasant. The rest of the road noise isn't great. You know, we've got a decent amount of it coming through and a bit of wind noise as well. This is not the ideal highway cruiser in terms of noise, certainly. Also, this is the sport suspension. You might see me bouncing over expansion joints and things like that. This is not the most comfortable ride in the world. We are in the normal driving mode, so the shock absorbers are calmed down compared to Sport Plus, but it's still not comfortable. It's perfectly compliant. Nothing about it is harsh or punishing or anything like that, but it's also not pleasant. That said, just chugging along at 2,000 RPM. The seats are very comfortable, and they are heated if it's colder weather. This car does have the heated steering wheel as well, and having wireless Apple CarPlay and the 10.9-inch center console touchscreen are both good benefits. So in a lot of ways, yeah, this would actually be a pretty pleasant car to drive on the highway. Maybe just not the best for your ears. So, what do we think of this 2023 Porsche 911 Carrera T? Is it the best Porsche 911 you can get for the road? Yeah, I think it is. There are a couple of just hard truths we have to deal with here. More horsepower is almost always good. It's almost always great. But how much are you really going to be able to use more horsepower if you're staying on public roads? Once you get to 380, once you get to a better than 10-to-1 weight to power ratio, it gets pretty hard to be able to improve on that very much. While more power is good, it is also diminishing returns. So you take a good amount of power, but then you just sharpen the chassis up just enough. It's still perfectly reasonable to drive on the street in normal conditions, but an absolute blast to drive around your favorite canyon roads, up and down mountains, whatever you got. This handles it, and it handles it so very well. So while any 911 is expensive, this is one of the least expensive ones you can get. So in a way, it's kind of a bargain as well. So yeah, if you're one of the lucky few that can look at cars at this price point and consider it, man, oh man, it is definitely worth it. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Doing so helps me out quite a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, I've got a new website. It's called viewsonvehicles.com, and that is where I've done some written reviews and also industry news, new product reveals, things like that. So if you get a chance, please do check that out as well. And if you're into Porsches, but you do think you want something more, I did get a chance to drive the 992 generation 911 GT3, and that thing is insanely good. But that's the kind of car that deserves some track time. And from there, I've reviewed a whole bunch of stuff by now. Something's gonna pop up on the screen next to me. Hopefully it is something you are interested in. And if you do end up watching it, I definitely hope you like it. Okay, goodbye for now.